Hi, welcome to another TOGAtech video. If any of you have seen my previous videos, you'll see that this is version 3 of my button box, which is going to be a generic aviation MCP for the Autopilot lights control panel for use with Flight Sim 2020. So for this project you're going to need a number of sheets of this, which is our 4mm acrylic. This is actually black, this one, but you can do it in whatever colours you like. There's black, grey, white. You're also going to need a number of push button switches like these, which I showed you previously, with DuPont cables connected, again in various colours, but the choice of colour is up to you. We have black, we have green, we have white, and we also have a red. The choice of colours is up to you. I'll leave a link in the description below as to where you can purchase these from. A number of toggle switches. These are miniature on-off toggle switches. You're also going to need to control all of this. Either a BU A320X, this is a LeoBodner control card, or the larger one, because this has 32 inputs, or the BBI64, LeoBodner BBI64 card, which has 64 inputs. A number of, I believe it's 5, Rotary encoders. These are the KY040 Rotary encoders. I'll leave a link to all the products in the description below. Now, if you'd watched my previous video, I had a problem with Encoder Bounce, which is where you're trying to move just one increment on your encoder, and the software is actually bouncing it either clockwise and then anti-clockwise or counterclockwise because the signal's not smooth. Now, that was done with a standard rotary encoder, and I wanted to find a solution to this encoder bounce problem. Well, with these KY040 rotary encoders, they've got the hardware bounce problem already on the circuit board. There's a couple of capacitors and resistors already surface soldered to these, and I haven't found a problem with bounce at all. So highly recommend using these instead of a standard rotary encoder. The only problem I do find is the dual concentric rotary encoders. They don't make it like this. So the only way is to follow the circuit diagram on there on how you can reduce the bounce and adapt that with some hardware to a dual concentric. But I'm not using dual concentric rotary encoders in this project. So a number of those. They're your rotary encoders. I've got one attached here already to the input-output card, and it works perfectly well. So it's rotary encoders, on-off switches, mini on-off switches, momentary push buttons, your acrylic, and some wire, some solder, etc. But I think that's about it for now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to design the whole setup using Inkscape, produce an SVG file, and then I'll come back to you when I've done that. Okay, I've had to make this entire MCP in 3 parts because this is the maximum size my K40 laser will cut, which is about an A4 size. Those sheets of acrylic are A4, and that's about as big as this laser can cut. So I've made it in 3 sections. This is the mid section with all the autopilot stuff on there, with the heading hold, altimeter hold, nav hold, the flight level change, vertical speed, etc. So this is the main section. We've got a smaller section that will go on this side, which will have the FMS to control our flight plan. And then on this side here I've done another one which has got all the buttons for the master battery, the alternator, all your light controls, your anti-ice, etc., your probe heats, all on that. And it all comes out to just over, I think it's 600 millimeters wide in total by 130 deep, which fits perfectly on my flight simulator just below my main monitor. So that is the reason why I went for that size. I'll leave a link to all the SVG files in the description below. But so far, here you can see the panel. It's all been laser cut nicely. I've done these are the holes for the momentary push buttons, and then you've got some 5mm holes here for some LEDs. Now at the moment the wiring doesn't include the LEDs because they'll only work with a latch type push button switch unless you wire them to an output that on a Leonardo board. If you wire them to that, then you can actually take the outputs from the game or from the simulator and have it tell you whether or not these LEDs are on or off. But at the moment with this setup, I'm going to put them in there, but I haven't developed how we're going to work around getting them to function at the moment. But they're just 5mm LEDs. I'm going to use all green in fact for these, so I'll be mounting those in a bit later on. Okay, so at the moment I'm going to start adding some of the switches in. For the buttons along the bottom there, for the autopilot buttons, I'm going to use the blacks. So that'll be the first one, will be the heading, go in there. And these are all just momentary push buttons that are wired to DuPont cables, which if you check out my other video you can see how I've gone through all that, but there's no need to do all of that. And that'll be the first one in there like that. Let's put the back nuts on. All over here, grab a back nut and a spring washer. I'll just do a couple and then I'll speed through and come back to you when it's all done. Because I've used these jellies to connect the wires, they're a bit of a pain getting through the nuts, holding them on. I'm just reusing switches from a previous project, that's all. There we go, we'll just do that up. It's as simple as that. That's number one on there. Now, I don't know if you can make that out, but I have etched out the headings here, like heading, control, alternator and that. I've done that with vector engrave on my laser cutter. Now, because this is black acrylic, it's not going to be backlightable. But what I will do is I'll fill these in with some white furniture crayon, and they'll show up a lot better. If you were to do this with clear or white acrylic, spray it black first and then etch them, you'll get the letters will show through. If you do it with clear acrylic or opaque acrylic, you'll be able to backlight it. Again, you can see that on some of my previous videos, but just for this one I'm just going to fill these in. They're deep enough with some furniture crayon in white, and they'll show up nicely. Okay, well, I'm going to populate this board. This section here I haven't mentioned is for a 16 by 2 16 characters by 2 lines LCD display that can fit in there, because again this is going to be a quick functioning using the LeoBodner card, which will make it nice and simple. There's no software to write, no programming to do, and these functions will all work. But if you want to use the LCDs and the LEDs to light up, taking data from Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, you want to be able to set this up using a LeoBodner card and some software to run it as well, which you can check out in a future video. But for now I'm just going to get this running on the very simple input-output card. Okay, I'll populate this board and I'll come back to you. Okay, now I've populated the board now with my momentary push buttons in there. And that's them at the back there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is fit the rotary encoders. Now each one of these rotary encoders has 5 connections. We've got a ground wire, positive wire, that's your 5 volts plus 5 volts. This middle one is for a switch, because not only does the rotary encoder turn clockwise, anti-clockwise, it also has a push button switch, momentary switch in itself. So the centre cable here, the centre wire, that's for the switch, and then these two here are for your clock, or the CLK and the DT. I think it stands for data and clock. Now these work as though you're turning the encoder clockwise or anti-clockwise. So now what I'm going to do, these don't have any screw attachments on them, I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to have to fix these in with a bit of hot glue. So they're just going to come through the back here, and I'll just seat that in with a bit of hot glue and hold that in place. And I'm going to do the same with the LEDs as well. I'll put these all in, even though I'm not going to wire them up for now. I'll fit the LEDs in just there like that with a little bit of hot glue. You can see that. And I'll hot glue those all in, and then I'll come back. Okay, there we have it. Well, I've glued in the LEDs along the bottom there and the rotary encoders. I'm actually short a rotary encoder, got one missing there, and I'm missing quite a few LEDs at the moment, so I'm going to get on the old internet and order some up, and then I'll come back to you once I've got some more electronics in and finish off the project. In the meantime, I've got the other 2 panels, the FMS panel being cut on the laser, along with a switch panel for the lights, etc. But that's looking quite good. I'm quite proud of that. That looks very nice. So as I say, I've got the green LEDs in there. I've got one for the Autopilot Master, and I need to get some more to go in here, and one more rotary encoder. There's the encoders there. So far looks pretty impressive. I've got the LCD screen to go in there. Not that I'll be wiring it in, but I've got one here. This is the LCD with the I2C unit on the back. Once I work out how to do it using a LeoBodner, I probably will wire them all up. But that's the 16 by 2 LCD screen. Let's peel that off there. You can see it a bit better. There we go. So 16 characters long, 2 rows, 2 lines, and that should fit in the back here. Actually, I think I did this one for the four line one, yeah. So that's a bit small for that one. That's the 16 by 2. What's actually going in here, I believe, is this one. That one there, which is a, let's open that one up. This is 20 characters long, 4 lines. Even that, I think the hole's been cut wrong. Got the wrong sizes. Did look up the sizes. So that goes there, like that, to fill in there. But I do think that hole size is wrong, according to when I looked up the internet before these came to get the dimensions for that, and that was worked out wrong. What I'll do is I'll make a little bezel to go over the top of that, so it just does that opening there. It's a much smaller opening than it was previously thought. There you go there. So I'll make a little bezel that size to go over the top of that one. Okay, but as soon as the rest of the electronics are in, I'll carry on with the video and come back to you. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon. So I've made up a couple of boxes out of a bit of old MDF, painted them black. I've made 2, just in case I want to move the switch panel 1 to somewhere else. And that, and then this is how they go in. Panel's been populated with the switches now. See there, been populated with the switches. Let's go in there. And then we've got the larger panel. This is the Autopilot panel. Go in there. Put those in there. Like that. There we go. It looks like that. And then the switch panel, which is this bit here. I'll just move that aside a bit. That. There's a switch panel. It should put a mass of spaghetti in there. It should fit in there like that. Nice. Everything. Got to sort out the engraving on the panels. Need to get a bit of white furniture crayon and just rub them in the grooves there, and then that should highlight the engraving. Started one on here just using a white crayon, but we'll get the proper stuff and we can do then. But what I've been waiting on, say I've got some missing encoders here and LEDs, so luckily parcels are turned up today. Fit these rotary encoders. If I could open a packet. Oh, there we go. There we go. They're the KY04 rotary encoders. So I've got one more to go there. One there, and one there. So There's 1, 2, 3, 4 more to fit. I'll get on and fit them. Again, with the missing LEDs I've got to go in here. I've also got to show you how to wire up an LED, because the LEDs obviously can't take 5 volts, so we need to attach a resistor to them, solder up a resistor to one of the legs of each of these LEDs, and I'll go through the wiring with one, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain link all the commons of all the LEDs, wire it back to just one lead. Okay, I'll go through that in a moment. See you in a minute. Okay, right, first thing we want to do is fit the rest of these rotary encoders in the FMS panel here. Now, they're quite straightforward. That's your KY040 rotary encoder. And it's got a push button switch on it as well. And it's got these nice easy connectors on here. So the easiest thing to connect those up with are these, which are DuPont cables. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections on there. So we need 5 DuPont cables. I'm just going to tear off 5 of the strip here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, just torn off a strip of 5 connectors there. I'm always going to keep the ground, the black cable as the ground. So we locate the ground on our switch here. On the common, they're all labelled on the front there. There's the ground. So just label the ground. We'll keep the black cable on the ground. And just push the other wires on. Next is the positive. Then you've got the switch wire. Switch wire on. And then you've got the DT and the clock, CLK. So that's all the 5 connections on there. And the 5 cables coming out the other end, which will connect to your I/O board. Now all I'm going to do is, these don't have any screw fasteners, which is a bit of a drawback. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in position and then stick some hot glue on it. Now, seems a bit tight on that. This looks like this is wider on the shaft than the ones I've used previously. So that hole needs a little bit of widening. That one's okay. So I'm going to pop that through there, and then just with my hot glue gun, glue that in position.
Pause system test. OK.
Stansted Ground Cessna Golf, Tango Oscar Golf Alpha requesting pushback.
Stansted Ground Cessna Golf, Tango Oscar Golf Alpha, no pushback tug is available to answer your request.
Stansted Ground Cessna Golf, Tango Oscar Golf Alpha request taxi for departing straight out with whiskey.
Cessna Golf, Tango Oscar Golf Alpha taxi to and hold short of runway.
Well, that's it for part one of the MCP build. In the first part, we built this button box here, which is a sort of standardised replica of the 172, Cessna 172, but it has all the functions on for all aircraft on there, and that's wired to the LeoBodner BBI 64-pin card. So that's a basic button box with a standard input-output. What we'll be doing in part two is we'll be wiring up the rest of the MCP, which is this here, which is our Autopilot panel, and then our FMS panel over this side here. Now we're going to be wiring this up slightly differently because we want to get input and output functions on this. We want the inputs from the buttons and the rotary encoders, but we also want outputs from the sim to illuminate the LEDs as well on here. And for that we'll be using this, which is an Arduino 256 Mega, which allows you to have inputs and outputs on here using a piece of software called Mobiflight. So I'll catch you in the next video, and thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.